Howdy everyone, Runt9 here, and welcome to Runt9 Reviews DemonCrawl. DemonCrawl is a Minesweeper roguelike from their 4 games. And I know right off the bat you're thinking, how in the world could someone turn Minesweeper into a roguelike? Believe me, I was skeptical too when I first heard about it. But now that I've gotten into it, played a good bit of it, it's made its way to being review worthy in that, at the very least, it took a few hours of my time. And so how about we jump in, check out some gameplay. You'll see how it is literally Minesweeper, but a roguelike with RPG elements, items, randomly generated paths, stuff like that. And then after we look at some gameplay, we'll come back here and then I'll tell you what I think about DemonCrawl. Alright, so let's hop in and take a closer look at the gameplay of DemonCrawl. So you land here, this is your main menu, and up here you go to your settings, and you got a few different things going on, full screen mode, some various different settings here, but not a whole lot to look at. You got your typical audio sliders, seems to be fairly standard, obviously got things pulled down. For gameplay, you've got the controls, as well as some inverting stuff, auto flagging and no flagging. That's also something that, just comes with being able to do Minesweeper stuff. Lock board zoom, it's probably something I should turn on. I also probably should turn on fast sweep. I never even looked at it. There's more stuff here. I haven't really necessarily looked at these too terribly much, but not a whole ton of settings, but it is nice that you can rebind your key controls. And then you've got some network settings, namely making sure that you can sync with the Steam cloud. Definitely would highly recommend that. And so also you have this external token shop. And so as you gain XP by completing levels, you will have the ability to come in here and spend some of your credits. You've got XP boosts. You have the ability to unlock future quests. I'll kind of mention what that is in a minute. You can upgrade the amount of tokens you get. The cool thing that I'm looking forward to once I can actually get past the first quest is being able to unlock these classes. These classes all have their own special abilities, like the Survivor begins the quest with an extra life, or Knight begins the quest with an extra defense. In addition, you've got some additional legendary items that you can add into the random pool. But, we're not going to spend too much time looking at that. Mostly, you're here to see what is the core gameplay. There's Classic, where you can just play basic Minesweeper with some different monsters and stuff, or you can go into Quest mode. You start out with the tutorial, you have Quest 1, you have different difficulty levels, you have casual and normal. I've been playing on normal. And then you've got these other 4 quests that you have to complete certain objectives, and I'm assuming like you have to complete Quest 1 first before you can unlock it. So then you go ahead and drop in, and now you have this pretty much randomly generated path that gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So you start off with a fairly basic board. So this is your typical 6x6, and up here it shows you how many monsters are remaining. This tells you what the power of the monsters are, and basically what that means is down here at the bottom you have HP, which is, obviously very weird for a Minesweeper game. Rather than clicking on a monster or mine killing you outright, instead it deals damage to your HP. The power shows you the minimum to maximum, and it is rolled randomly between the minimum and maximum, obviously inclusive since it's starting 1-to-1 here. So essentially what that means is if I take damage from a monster, right now it would deal 1 damage to my HP. If you have any defense, it will reduce the damage and take away from defense before it gets to your HP. And then obviously you also get money as you go through this, so you can spend at shops. So, for example, you can pick up these coins here. You've also got these treasure chests which have random loot. This is a consumable. For 10 seconds, whenever you spend coins on a stranger, activate the stranger again. Strangers are neutral NPCs, I guess, that will pop up in cells that you open up, and they'll usually do things for you. Like there's one that'll craft armor for you, or one of them that you can feed items to, and stuff like that. Otherwise, it's Minesweeper. So we've got a 2 here, so you can also right click and left click on the individual numbers, and it will go ahead and automatically perform the action for you. So this 1 is already there, so we can click on that. We've got a 3, 2, 2, 2. So we've got a 1 down here, a 2, 2 there. We've got a 2 there, 2 there, 3 there. All right, so we'll take just a brief moment here to puzzle this out. So this is essentially a 1, 1, 2. This is a 1, 2, 2, 1, which means there's going to be monsters there and there. Actually, no, not necessarily. No, because this is also a 1. Yeah, so there's 2 monsters left, and this obviously does help because now you can kind of see what fulfills all of these requirements. Well, it has to be there and there because you have to finish off the 3. Also, well, it could also be there. No, it has to be there in order to fulfill that too. And just to make sure I've got it right, that completes that. That completes that. Yep, there we go. And so after you complete a stage, you get a little bit of XP for beating it and taking no damage. And then after that, you've got an item shop, which you could spend some coins at, and you have a harder stage. And so it shows you the total cell count, the total number of monsters, and the power of the stage. In addition, you've got some of these quests up here that will give you bonuses if you're able to complete them. We'll take a look at an item shop real quick because I'm not going to actually complete this run. Usually you can skip an item stage and then come back to it later once you have some gold. Most things that you're going to want to buy are going to cost, 20-ish gold, but we'll take a look at it. So for example, we've got this for 3. This is a consumable. Pause the stage timer for 5 minutes. This one, 25% chance to spawn a heart during the next 10 turns. This is a great one to have. And then this one, you will find twice as much loot until your next mistake. All good stuff. And so we'll hop into the cavern. I'll see if we can show you a little bit more. I legitimately haven't seen one of these before. I've got 6 hours in this game and I'm still learning new stuff. Gain 1 minion. Increase this value by 1 whenever you open 20 cells without making a mistake. Seems good. So we've got some coins. Diamonds are just 5 coins. We've got a chest, more treasure, and so you can also have things like bad omens that can come in and, well, cause you very bad things. I've had some bad omens be like complete run enders, and obviously that can be a little bit on the frustrating side, but I will say that for the most part, it never feels completely like you don't have a chance. In order for this to work, it has to be one of those 2 cells. So that'll tell us where we're at. That's there. We're good. And so that's another stage clear. And so this should give you a pretty good look at what it's like. And so you'll continue progressing through these stages. You get to the very end, which is a very hard stage. And hopefully by that point, you've gathered enough good items that you can beat it so that those guesses don't quite hurt you as much. But I think that's going to do it for the gameplay. I think that should give you a good look at what DemonCrawl has going on. So how about we hop back and I tell you what I think about DemonCrawl. Alrighty, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that quick look at what the game DemonCrawl has to offer. So now we're going to jump into my review of it using my personal cards review system that I use on this channel. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the link in the description below. That takes you to the introduction to the review format so that you can get a better understanding of what these terms and whatnot mean as we go through the rest of this. So jumping right into the core gameplay loop, I mean, ultimately it's Minesweeper, and if you don't like Minesweeper, you're not gonna like this game. And so you have to take that right off the bat. That said, it does add enough elements on top of Minesweeper that if you were like, I kind of like the puzzly nature of it, but after a while it gets boring because it's too samey. Oh, DemonCrawl is, every single run is just wildly different. Yeah, you're still playing Minesweeper, but your core gameplay loop is finishing a quest, which as of yet, I've still yet to do. And you go through increasingly harder challenges, just like you do in normal roguelike. You gather items, you get negative omens. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that can happen. I'm going to give it a B+. And that's mostly because at its core, I get frustrated when you have to guess in Minesweeper. That is my biggest issue with this game, is there have been plenty of times where I felt like I was at the mercy of a 50-50 guess to see if my run succeeded or failed. I mean, especially once you get to the harder levels, there's so many monsters on the board, and sometimes you get some really bad omens. I mean, anytime you pop a chest, there's a percentage chance, I don't know what it is, but there's a percentage chance that you get a negative omen, and some of those are run ruining. At the same time, there's still a lot to learn. There are ways to remove omens. There's ways to deal with guessing and moving on. Usually the earlier you guess, the better, because it gives you more time to recover. You guess and then you move on. And learning the patterns and all that kind of stuff can really help you go a long way. That's why it's not in, an A- kind of tier, is because of some of those frustrations. But ultimately, I really enjoy playing Minesweeper with this veil of RPG roguelike elements added on top of it. It's really neat. And I love seeing games that do this. I never did a review for it, but Solitarica is another one that was basically Spider Solitaire turned into a roguelike. I love that there are creators out there taking old classic concepts and putting a fresh roguelike spin on it. And so DemonCrawl coming in at that B+ is saying that I like what it's doing. At its core, I just am not the biggest Minesweeper fan in the world, and that's why it doesn't jump up higher into the A's for me. Moving right along to DemonCrawl's atmosphere, ultimately, my biggest complaint is going to be that at full 1080p resolution, it is way too pixely for me. And I'm going to give the atmosphere a C+, and honestly, a very large part of that is just the graphic UI design in general. I do think that the stages are pretty. I like the different colored tiles. I think the UI, if you can read it, is very clear and it makes sense, but the style, like, I want more dots per inch. Give me more pixels. I don't need it to be super high res, but I shouldn't need to play it at 480p for it to actually look good. And I mean, obviously, whenever you would play Minesweeper on your dad's computer when you were 8 years old, you would be doing it in a tiny little window that's this big on your screen. But you got to give me more pixels. Also, the sound design, there's not much there. There's really not a lot of immersion. It's a puzzle solving game. And I mean, I do find myself getting lost in the puzzles, but I don't know if I would consider myself immersed. Now, granted, this is not a game that you play for the atmosphere. You play it because of the mechanics. And I think that you'll see as we go through the rest of this that C+ is really just... I wish that it took a modern take on Minesweeper mechanically. I wanted more polish from the graphics and sound side in order to kind of take this up to that next level. Now we're going to move on to the replayability of the game. And I mean, ultimately, there are people who have played literally thousands or tens of thousands of hours of Minesweeper and have ridiculously high scores. And so because it's a theoretically infinite puzzle game, the replayability in and of itself, being based off of Minesweeper, is going to be ridiculously high. And then you throw in the sheer amount of items and quests and unlocks and all of that, I'm giving replayability an A. And really, the only reason it's not an A+ is purely because I know that I will get tired of the fundamental Minesweeper formula at some point. But I can't imagine it being, 10 years in the future and thinking, you know what? No, I never want to play DemonCrawl again. Like, no, I legitimately think that for years and years to come, I will want to pick up and play a quest of DemonCrawl every once in a while. It just has that feeling to it. It's not necessarily a game that I want to sit down and play hours and hours and hours of at a given time. That's not what replayability is about. It's how many times do I want to keep doing that core gameplay loop? And it's got it in spades. And I still am, like, I haven't even unlocked any of the classes yet. And the classes give you these special abilities. I haven't made it past the first quest yet. And so, like, and I've already gotten quite a few hours out of the game. So I can definitely see how this game has just a ton of staying power. That's why I'm putting it right at that A. Now, jumping into difficulty, this is going to be maybe a little bit controversial. I'll open with the score. I'm giving it a B-. And a large part of that is because I think it's too difficult. I mean, the unlocks don't necessarily make your runs easier. It's not necessarily roguelite in that sense that you're supposed to fail until you get better, meta gear or whatever the case may be. No, it's not like that. Like, legitimately, you just have to be good at Minesweeper to progress. And this game did force me to learn some of the patterns, your 1-2-1s, your 1-2-2-1s, those kinds of things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go look up Minesweeper patterns on Google and dive into the rabbit hole that I went down. It's kind of crazy how much strategy there is around Minesweeper. But I should have gotten past the first quest by now. And maybe that's just more on me, but I do feel a little bit demotivated by that. I do feel a little beat down by that. Again, those random guesses, some of the omens are just absolutely run-ending when you get them. And unless you already have an item that can purge omens, you're pretty much like going to lose that run no matter what. And I hate that feeling. So I think that overall, the difficulty is how good are you at Minesweeper, or how quickly can you learn? But I think the difficulty ramps up too much. I think there's too many items, whether they be omens or consumables. Like, I accidentally misclicked on, I think it was an alcohol or beer or something like that. And it makes you constantly lose health forever. You will die unless you can purge that status effect. And it happened because of a misclick, because I had no way to get rid of it because I had picked it up from a chest. Little things like that, that's going to bring the difficulty down for me. And I mean, it's frustrating at times. That said, ultimately, like I said, it's got a pretty low skill floor and a fairly high skill ceiling, but not like ridiculously high. I do think you can get very good at DemonCrawl without, hundreds of hours of effort or anything. And that's why the difficulty didn't go further down than that B-. And then we're going to jump into our last category here, and that's going to be support. I think the support for the game has been pretty solid so far. If you go look at the patch history over just in 2020, I mean, this came out came out in early access November of 2019. If you just look at the patch history since the start of January, it's every couple of weeks. There's balance fixes, there's updates, bug fixes, whatever the case may be. In addition, there is the first free expansion coming to the game within the next month or two. I couldn't quite get the final updates on that, but I'm giving support an A-. So far, the developer looks like they're really on top of things. They really want to focus on making the game better. That free expansion is supposed to revamp the end game that I might get to someday if I can get past the first quest. And adding an end game to this, I think, is a wonderful concept, because you can get to the point, I'm sure, where, okay, I've seen what the game has to offer. Am I really just going to sit here and play more Minesweeper? Probably not. I'm going to jump on to other games. So adding reasons to keep coming back to the game seems like a net positive. And so, I mean, so far, I think the developer's doing a good job. They're reaching out. They're active, in the community and everything. I do think that they could probably do a little bit more content updates, but there's really not a lot of room for improvement there. And I think the only other thing that would be great, and I'm going to say this on just about every review, is obviously having a Steam Workshop where you could add in your own items, own enemies, whatever, that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's like really stretching it thin. That's where you take an A to an A+ kind of situation. So I'm gonna stick at that A-. I think that it's pretty solid, and you know, looking forward to seeing what else the developer comes up with for this game. So a final recap on that: we had core gameplay loop at a B+, we had atmosphere at a C+, we had replayability at an A, difficulty at a B-, and support at an A-. And that brings us into the final tier ranking. And I'm sure you can reasonably guess that it's not going to be very low on the list based off the fact that all the scores were pretty good. I waffled a lot between special and solid on this because I think it does fall fairly close to that line. I looked at some of the other solid games that I've reviewed or not necessarily reviewed, but my spreadsheet that I have that has all of these scores that I put together of a bunch of existing games to kind of fine-tune the system and give me a frame of reference when I'm reviewing games. And I kept saying, yeah, you know, I think it's better than that game, but worse than that game, better than that game, worse than that game, and it kept falling right on that line. I'm gonna bump it just into that special tier though. And the biggest reason is because like I mentioned, that free content update that's coming where they're going to add an end game to this, I think that's probably what's going to solidify it in that special tier. But even as it sits right now, it has enough going on that it makes me want to keep coming back. I find it very interesting. I think that it's a very unique spin on Minesweeper. And again, like, I'm really happy to see games taking existing core fundamental classic games that have been around for an eternity and add modern spins on them. And I think they added a really good modern spin on it. And that's why I'm putting it in that special tier. Again, I don't think that it's necessarily as good as you know, some of the other special games that I've taken a look at. But at the same time, I do also think that I have to recommend this game. I mean, if you are a Minesweeper fan, if you remember it fondly, you want this game. If you're a fan of puzzle games, if you're a fan of roguelikes, I think it deserves a shot. And also right now, I believe, yeah, it is still on sale on Steam for half off. So it is currently $7.49 USD. I would spend that in a heartbeat. I did spend that on a heartbeat. The instant it went on sale, it had been on my wish list for a while. The instant it went on sale, I bought it and started playing it right away. I can't recommend it enough at the current sale price. I think at its MSRP, I want to see just a little bit more. You know, that $15, it is still a pretty solid value add. You know, it looks like I've gotten about 6 hours out of it, and that is pretty solid. Absolutely. And that's why it kind of feels on that edge for me, is I don't know that I would recommend it at its current full price, but there's a lot of content in the game. And absolutely, if you think this is a game that's going to interest you, you need to pick it up. It's a fantastic game. And again, it's going in my special tier. That's DemonCrawl. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed watching this. Again, I'm really happy to be doing these reviews. I find it really exciting to be able to sit here and talk to the camera about video games in my own passionate way. And so if you enjoyed the episode, definitely let me know your feedback, whether it be likes, dislikes, comments, whatever the case may be. In addition, feel free to find me on Twitter at Runt9 Plays. I'd love to hear your feedback there as well. And also, if you're interested in seeing more DemonCrawl, it has already become a stream staple over at twitch.tv/Runt9Plays, where I stream Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so, if this game interests you, definitely go check the channel out. I've already done it a couple times on stream, and I guarantee you it's going to keep showing up. One of my current fans so far is also a huge fan of the game, and so, you know, it's also good to be able to interact with the community. So anyways, I think that's going to do it for now. I'm Runt9. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you later.